We're beginning.
Perfect. All right. All right. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, March 21st meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission. We'll go ahead and get started with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson, present. Vice Chair Jake.
Present.
Alder Veronica Corpus-Dax.
Present.
Commissioner Sydney Bremer. We're still waiting on her. Commissioner Darius Daniels.
Present.
And Commissioner Ken Ravinsky.
Present.
Okay. So we're going to move them to the front. Item number 2 for Alder Lefebvre. We're going to actually start with that item. And then items number 4 and 5, which is Jeff Merkis's items for the bid boards for the Green Bay Incorporated and for Old Main Street. He also has another meeting, so we'll be moving that up after we do item number 2. And then so we'll start with item number 2. Move to item 4 and 5, and then go back to item number 1.
Okay, do we need to approve that agenda change?
We do.
Okay. So moved.
I'll second that by way of saying that Sid Bremer is now present.
Excellent. Hi, Commissioner Bremer. All right, so we have a motion by Alder Corpus-Dax and a second by Commissioner Bremer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then moving on to the approval of minutes. Approval of the minutes from the March 7th, 2022 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, a second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, and then moving on to regular business, which will start with item number 2. Public hearing on request to partially rezone 2475 University Avenue from general commercial to highway commercial, submitted by Justin Barnes on behalf of SRL2 Inc. property owner. And I do apologize, I don't know what I was thinking. Item 2 and 3 go together as well. But with this public hearing on item number 2, the public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Green Bay Press Gazette. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or are only providing information and your comments or concerns. We ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid testimony. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to
I'd like to give just a super quick overview. Okay, and you'll hear much more detailed in the actual petition item, which is next. But let me share the screen. This property everybody see it? Yes. Okay.
Yes,
So the
you're
all right, the property itself is about 3.5 acre parcel located on the east side of Green Bay. You can see here University Avenue, where it splits to go to the highway. It's at the southeast corner, sort of the southeast corner, east corner. Festival Foods is to the southwest. So the whole property itself is 3.5 acres. Petitioner is proposing to carve off a piece of 1.3 acres and rezone it to highway commercial. with the ultimate goal of installing a car wash.
Okay, thank you so much, Dave.
Sure.
And then with the public hearing, for people who are looking to speak in favor of this item. Is there anyone looking to speak in opposition to this item?
Could I speak in favor?
Was there someone looking to speak in opposition to this item?
Somebody asked to speak in favor of it. I think he needs to identify himself by name and address. He just came in right at the tail end there.
Oh, okay.
All right. Jared Schmidt, Robert E. Lee and Associates, here representing the applicant, and obviously support voting in favor. Happy to answer questions during the action portion of the process, but just wanted to let the commissioners know that representatives of the applicant is here. We're really excited about the opportunity as a whole. Mr. Buck introduced the rezone portion of it, but the purchaser is looking to acquire the larger 3-acre parcel with the intent to redevelop that entire area and try to modernize it from the facility that sits there today. Along with that would be a extension of the public street known as Jenny Lane. So I just wanted to make it aware that myself, as long as the applicant itself is present, should questions come up as you get further into the dialogue about the project.
Thank you so much. Was there anyone else, excuse me, wishing to speak in favor of this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this item? Is there anyone wishing to provide information only? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the actionable corresponding item, item number 3, which is consideration with possible action on request to partially rezone 2475 University Avenue from general commercial to highway commercial, submitted by Justin Barnes on behalf of SRL2 Inc. property owner. You're on mute, Dave.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, so I'll give it a couple seconds while it's generating. Is it up there? All right. Okay, so as I had mentioned, this is a rezone for larger parcel. Again, about 3.5 acres. The area to be requested to be rezoned is about 1.3 acres. You'll see it is kind of an odd shape, and when you see the site plan, you'll kind of understand what's going on. So again, this is on the far east side of town. You have multifamily across University Avenue to the north, commercial shopping center to the southwest. Directly to the south, there are some auto sales lots. Also a bowling alley, dollar store, and some apartments. To the east, there's some condos, some storage, and sort of some leftover uses that are here, auto repair. This is the future land use plan from a comp plan. It does show commercial uses for the general area on some high intensity, you can see street in the surrounding. The zoning map itself shows this as a C1 zoning, being requested to go to a C2. You'll notice there is some C3, which is a shopping center district that's over by the grocery store. Some more commercial along University. And I'll kind of go to the next slide. This is a picture of the site. It is currently developed with a lack of a better term, a strip center with multi-uses in there. There's some retail, there's some restaurants. But the site itself just contains that strip center. The remainder of the site is currently vacant. As you can see here, it's directly across from the exit to the what used to be, I believe, Clement Street. That goes to Festival Foods. What the petitioner is looking to do ultimately is to get a new roadway through this parcel, as the petitioner's representative had mentioned earlier, through this parcel, and then redevelop the entire site. What they are requesting today is just this green area going to a C2 zoning, which has a lot of different uses allowed in it. C2 is different than the C1 primarily in that oriented uses become permitted. So car lots, auto repair, car washes, things that are just by right, drive-through type uses, just an highway auto-oriented type district. So they are requesting that, ultimately coming forward to put in a car wash. And you can kind of see it's the light here, how it would be laid out. So this CSM is going to be done in conjunction with any type of zone change. So the CSM would have to be approved and recorded prior to the change. And that is going to be an added condition that isn't in your staff report right now. But it would have to be added there, as zoning needs to follow lot lines. So we can't do a sort of a blob of zoning in the middle of a single parcel. This, again, is just one use that's permitted. It does have some controls. Staff had reviewed this request. Due to its location on the corner of University and University, leading right to the highway, the highway commercial type of uses at this location would be appropriate. Again, it is only currently for this one piece. So the car wash being one of those would be appropriate as well. We have not heard anything from the neighbors. We did send out notice to adjoining neighbors and to the alderperson. The alderperson, Kathy LaFave, cannot be here this evening. She has multiple meetings at the same time, but she did leave a message stating that she is not in favor of a C2 zoning. She feels that intersection is far too congested right now. Auto-oriented would just add to that congestion and possible backups. However, staff looks at this, the C2 zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan. As I had mentioned, the allowable uses in C2 would be appropriate in staff's opinion at this location. Whether or not the rest of the site were to go to a C2. However, we are conditioning our recommendation of approval on the CSM being approved and recorded prior to the zone change. If that CSM is not recorded, we would not recommend for this change, being that it's only a portion of a larger parcel. So with that being said, we are recommending approval of the rezone request with one condition, that the setting the area of the rezone be completed and recorded prior to the zoning being changed. That could just be a timing thing that sits with this petition. Even if it goes through council and let's say it's approved, that zoning would be held until the CSM is approved.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Certainly.
Commissioner Bremer.
You're muted.
Sid, you're on mute. Sid, you're on mute.
Passing.
Can we take her off?
Let me see. I cannot.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to as the gatekeeper,
Oh,
but
Oh,
there.
she is.
Am I off now?
Yeah, you are.
You're live.
Okay, sorry. I would get too many things at once and I got the wrong information up here. I am having difficulty with this because it's just for this one segment of what looks to be a rather significant development. And it's hard for me to separate them out. It may be complicated because it looks like the segment that would become the car wash will take away my favorite neighborhood restaurant. But I could set that aside. I could set it aside much more easily if we were looking at the whole thing, because right now it looks a little bit like a spot zoning to me.
Well, would you like me to reply?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
You.
should have said that.
Certainly. The petitioner can probably answer this better than I, about future developments on that site. This is the only development currently that we know of as far as staff in the works. However, there has been a CSM created and there are concept plans put in. I'm assuming they're going to market those other sites for development, modernize the facilities. But that might be something for the petitioner to. And as far as the spot zone goes, there is C2 zoning on the south side of University, next to the Dollar Tree or Dollar Store, one of the retail establishments down there. And its placement on University Avenue and its connection to that other C2 zoning. In staff's opinion, we would not consider that a spot. It's kind of an extension. However, I don't know if the remainder of that parcel would end up with uses that required a C2 type zone. Oftentimes, conditional use permit can be given for auto-oriented uses in the C1 as well, depending what they are.
Mhm.
I
Thank
don't
you.
know if that answers anything, but
It points me.
If
in
I
the
can add to that,
right direction.
David,
Um,
could I add
Mr.
to that if that's all right?
Mr. Schmidt, we need to open the floor for other comment beyond
Yep.
the committee, and I want to make sure that any other committee members have a chance to ask questions of David first. Excuse me, Lisa, I'm actually back in one place now.
No, I'm sorry, you're fine. I was looking at Darius because in my screen, Darius is right below me. You have questions for the petitioner.
Lisa, before we get to that, can we just get one clarification from Dave on this? So
Yeah.
the one graphic that you had showed that street extension going through there. Is that, I just want to make sure that's also what we're talking about here, right? That's obviously, I know we're just talking about the zoning, but there was that street of that.
there was. So there is a CSM that has been submitted. It has not been routed yet for review. So this is really just for the rezoning. If the lot is split, it could be split without the road being dedicated. And then it would just remain a private drive or some other avenue for ingress and egress. Staff would still feel, even without the roadway, that lot would be okay for a C2 zoning. However, the lot needs to be established for the zoning to take place, whether it has a roadway in front of it or it's just using the University Avenue.
You answered my follow-up questions with the rest of what you said, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and I've remembered my other question now. When you were going through the various businesses that are roundabout, you did not go to the one furthest on the west, which is another car wash. Should we be considering that at all as we consider this?
Well, what you really need to consider is the uses that are permitted in the C2, not necessarily what's being proposed, because again, like we talked about before, that zoning allows a lot of different auto-oriented type uses. So it's really the determination if an auto-oriented use, whether that be a car wash or auto repair, is acceptable at that location. Yeah, as far as density of, really the market kind of takes care of that. We heard that a lot when a certain gas station was coming to town. We heard it from other gas station owners saying you're saturating the market. Market forces kind of take care of that. We really need to take a look at the core uses.
Hey, Dave, just from my point, my ignorance in this part, in this question, is this normal to do this type of zoning in a large parcel to separate it out like that? I know, see it talk about spot zoning, but is this a normal practice or is this outside of the norm?
It's a little bit outside of the norm. Typically, the land division would come first. However, I believe in this instance, there's an offer to purchase contingent on some of this stuff happening. So that's why the condition, we rarely put a condition on a rezone. In this case, we can because the lot doesn't exist as it's being requested to be rezoned at this time.
All right. Thank you.
Did we have further questions for staff or any comments, or did we have questions for the applicant?
Yes, so I'd like to move to open the floor.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bremer, second by Commissioner Ravinsky. All those in favor to open the floor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so I guess we're looking to hear from the applicant. If you could just state your name and address again, please, for the record.
Jared Schmidt, REL 1250 Centennial Center Boulevard, Hobart, Wisconsin. Appreciate the opportunity to talk and apologize to Ms. Bremer for speaking out of line. I just want to make sure that I had the opportunity to answer everyone's questions. So sometimes I go to meetings and they don't necessarily run them per a standard set of rules that we expect. So if I don't speak up, sometimes I fall on deaf ears. So do apologize for that.
No apology necessary. I was busy not speaking out of turn. Please.
Fair enough. To hopefully address some of the questions, I heard questions about, just general zoning and why C2 traffic, compatible uses. From our perspective, the process and procedure that we're going through is kind of as David had mentioned, there's an offer to purchase. Part of the offer to purchase is contingent upon knowing that a car wash is a acceptable use within the zoning district. And unfortunately, within the C1 zoning, it's neither a permitted nor a conditional use. So our opportunity to ensure that the use is going to be compatible. Overall, a zoning in the district, we think it's an appropriate use, primarily because of the location. And the reason we're not asking for the entirety of the parcel to be rezoned, which would be that full 3 acres and change, is that there are additional uses within C2 that this user would not necessarily desire to be adjacent to it. You start to get into some of the heavier commercial uses, and their desire is to have Class A, Grade A type properties adjacent to it, whether that be, let's just say, a coffee shop, restaurant, other type of retail that is compatible to what they're doing and helps drive their users. The entity developing this is called Club Car Wash. They're coming into the Wisconsin market with a number of different facilities and really feel that this is a great corner for their use. I would say it's a higher high-end car wash scenario. They operate on a subscription base, but also can use the daily users, and they find that these high traffic corners are ideal for their market. And frankly, the C2 zoning, the high intensive use, is very prevalent throughout the corridor with University Avenue, both adjacent and as you go down 57 into town, where this isn't necessarily a spot zoning, but the C2 is zoned more appropriately where you have those high density uses, whether it be essentially directly across the street or just west of the site. The C2 zoning in this one location, again, allows us to control that piece, but to allow the balance of the C1 zoning to be surrounding us to identify those uses that that our client believes are compatible to theirs. This site has been probably long underutilized. I'm not sure what restaurant you were referencing, but if it's the cafe there, I too am a big fan, and maybe they can find a home in one of the replacement strip centers, but if not, hopefully somewhere close so I can visit there as well. But ultimately, the zoning 2P2 really is the cleanest opportunity for this site in that location. As a whole, as I said, I think that corner is underutilized. There's probably only a certain percentage and a very of individuals that will be able to package these lots together and be able to execute a development, just because of the expectation of the seller. You know, the opportunity to punch Jenny Lane through is I think is really important, and you know, a little contrary to what the alderman's comment was, that I actually think this will help improve traffic. And the reason I say that is that we have a controlled intersection where Jenny Lane will extend through. If you look at the larger area development plan to the east and northeast, whether it be I'm gonna brutalize this name, but if it's is it Rothley Street or Rolfe Street, and then you get up to Liedman Court, which accesses the shores. Cedar Lake Apartments. Right now, anyone that leaves those two roadways are leaving to a lower controlled access. There is no streetlights. Yeah. So my belief is that anyone that is currently using those two, by and large, when they're leaving, they want to migrate to they want to go east, would likely follow a controlled intersection. They can safely.
Technical issues.
All right. Okay. So we got a lot of good information from the applicant. Do we have any questions, Commissioner Bremer?
Okay. First of all, I do want to confirm, I was tempted to do this while we were off the record, but I'll confirm it on the record. There are some of us who already go through that parking lot to access Jenny Lane, just exactly as the future proposal suggests. But for the current proposal, what happens to the rest of the strip mall? Once you cut it off on the other side of my favorite neighborhood restaurant, is that just going to be a bare wall? Are the remaining businesses remaining, or what?
Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, my understanding is that the entire property would be demoed at the time of construction and be brought to a pad-ready site so that redevelopment is more readily available to develop. We'll honestly say if there's a possibility to save part of it without adding tremendous amount of cost, like perhaps that's an option, but I don't envision that being the case. I think it would be a complete removal to pad-ready so that someone could move in pretty short order to redevelop that.
Do we have any further questions for the applicant? Is there anyone else from the public that's wishing to speak? Did you have a question, Alder Corpus Dax?
No.
Oh, okay. I just saw you unmuted, so I thought.
Nope. Getting ready to motion to close the floor.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion by Alder Corpus Dax and a second by Commissioner Bremer to close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, back to regular business. Any further discussion or questions for staff?
No further questions. I would move to approve.
I'll second that.
With the one condition.
With the, sorry, yes, with the one condition.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Miller, a second by Alder Corpus Dax to approve with the condition as it was in our packets. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll go ahead with a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then that will move forward to the next city council meeting, which is it the 12th or the 5th? Oh, it's a voting.
Yep, I believe it's April 19th.
The 19th?
April 5th was canceled, correct.
All right, so the next city council meeting of April 19th. That's crazy, April. Oof. Okay. All right, and then moving on to item number 4.
Thank you all.
Consideration with possible action on the Downtown Green Bay Inc. Business Improvement District's year-end reporting for 2021.
I'll start off this item real quick. As you know, by the bid operating handbook, once a year, we do have the bids come before the Plan Commission to go through their original, they always present their estimated budgets ahead of time. And then after the year happens, we have them come back and they show the actual, and then they highlight a couple of their accomplishments for the year. So I'm going to turn that over back to you, Chair.
Okay. I guess I moved these items forward because Jeff was going to be needing to be leaving. So he's not here right now?
He is here right now and he is next. So Jeff, if you'd like to take your items. That, Lisa.
Sorry, when you said a chair, I just assumed me, but you're probably in a different chair.
Yes, I was anticipating Wendy to just offer a bit of an introduction as to why the business improvement districts are here. We wouldn't exist without the partnership that we have with the city of Green Bay. And while I am always eager to talk about the exciting things that are happening, my focus is going to be on the past year, 2021. And as many of you know, I represent Downtown Green Bay Incorporated and Old Main Street. So the first one I will give you an update on. And it's also my understanding that, most of my comments are going to be improvement district funding, while in your packet is, in our entirety, the financial performance, basically the 2021 financial statement, our relationship and our, connection with the city and the Plan Commission is through the existence of our business improvement district. The bid in 2021, so you can see that our bid funding, bid revenues for the year 2021 came in at about $265,000, right on par with our budget. Budget was, budgeted around 266, and and it's very similar. So our business improvement district funding has been about at very stable because a lot of the properties in our downtown districts have been stable. This compares to our total revenues of about 728, and these are the funds that help support, for anyone who's maybe not familiar with what we do, the 4 primary disciplines are the creation of special events, downtown marketing, downtown business development, and the 4th area being physical improvements. I like to call it first impression initiatives. So the business improvement district funding, which you are all a part of approving our annual plan and budget, represents about 36% of our annual funding. We're very fortunate that we have other funding sources like sponsorships, title sponsorships to the events that we coordinate, and also through mainly sponsorships, but also some user fees. Some of the events, such as our Saturday Farmers Market, those vendors contribute to some of our funding that's needed to coordinate an event such as that. We had a good year. We're very thankful that we were in receipt of some of the PPP funding that was available that was available to nonprofit organizations.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion for item number 4.
So moved to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bremer, second by Alder Corpus-Dax. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and that is approved. Moving on to item number 5, consideration with possible action on the Old Main Street Business Improvement District's year-end reporting for 2021.
Thank you. As you can see on the report, the Old Main Street District is a very small business improvement district. We had budgeted about 58,000 in bid revenues. That came in around 59, which is nice. And the bid revenues do comprise a greater percentage close to 63% of our funding comes from that business improvement district. So we're very thankful to the property owners that support what we do. We had a break-even year. We were able to accomplish everything that we wanted to, and we are off there. So happy to entertain any questions, but bid revenues coming in right where we expected them to. And I know that our property owners are confident that we are putting those funds to good use, welcoming businesses, and able to create more activation as well now that conditions in the environment are improving.
Okay, thank you so much, Jeff. And I really just the whole downtown and the east side, I feel like everything is just really, it's exciting, everything that's going on. I know when I passed Scooter's Coffee on East Main Street earlier today, I noticed that Bill's hair thing is now a tattoo shop, which I didn't know about. So, cool things like that you don't notice. It's just really exciting, that area. So really, really good work. And thank you so much for everything that you do.
Much appreciated.
And so Jeff can get on with his good work. So I want to move approval of the report.
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Ravinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Thank
opposed?
you. Have a good evening, everyone.
You too.
Thank you so much, Jeff. All right, and then moving on. Which is possible action on this comprehensive plan, the 4,000 block of Shampoo Road from a future commercial land use designation to light industry, submitted by Seth Lenz, ICS Properties LLC petitioner, on behalf of Joe Moore, agent for the property owners.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Let me share the screen. Here we go. Okay, so this comprehensive amendment request was reviewed on February 21st by the Plan Commission. It did receive recommendation of approval, and that recommendation was forwarded to Common Council on March 1st. The Common Council, after very long discussion, referred it back to the Plan Commission. These requests are in your pack, changed from the February 21st meeting. They're exactly the same. What we did receive following the commission meeting and prior to the council, we received actually eight comments via email or telephone call. And then following the referral back to the Plan Commission, we received an additional 8. However, 3 of those were from the same people, different comments. And we also received a joint objection that was signed by 21 individuals. So those are really the changes. But for those commissioners who were not here, I'm going to go do a very abridged presentation. So this is the site itself. It is about 11 acres, just under 11 acres on Shampoo Road. Shampoo Road is a cul-de-sac that runs off of Maloney Road and then ends right before it gets to Highway 5457. This site is accessed via Algoma Boulevard, which has a direct exit coming off of 5457. You would then come down Maloney Road, down to Shampoo to access this site. What you see in gray is the town of Scott. And what you see in not gray is the city of Green Bay extraterritorial area where we have a joint planning agreement with the town of Scott. So this is just a little bit better look at the site. To the south, you have Tillman Landscaping, which is a wholesale landscaper. There's a couple individual businesses, a sign company, and sort of a multi-use business, some residential homes, a home directly to the east. Ignore this park and ride. Park and ride is over here. So on Malone, just to the north, on the other side of this creek, is a medical clinic coming off of Equestrian Road. And then as you go further to the south, which is a little bit harder to see, down Maloney Road and Leland Road, also dead ends down here. These are exclusively single-family homes. So this is the comprehensive plan, shows that to be a commercial land use designation. The purple is a business park or industrial type designation. The zoning shows it to be rural residential. However, this whole area is covered by the University Heights Commerce Center and unit development with specific covenants. That PUD breaks the zoning into 3 categories. And I think I have that on the next slide. This is it. Commercial, light manufacturing, and mixed use. So you can see I have circled the property we're talking about. Mixed use allows residential uses, commercial uses, generally with council approval. Light manufacturing allows manufacturing uses and storage uses, distribution center type uses, and the commercial district allows quite a bit of commercial. So this area was designed or planned in 2000, and you can see at that time, that was before the crash. It's what's known as a corridor commercial plan. So there's a corridor running along Lacoma Boulevard, and it also runs along the highway, and those were commercial strips. As you go in, you have the mixed use, which allows the commercial and the residential, and that is also located here. And then the industrial area is sort of behind the commercial along Algoma Boulevard. So I guess I can give you some of the examples from the neighboring communities. So town of Scott to the north here has an industrial future land use. Residential as a mixed use here, residential as it comes down this way, and then residential in this area. I think I actually have it here. So this is their future land use plan. You can see here this brown shows it as agricultural. However, the quarry is right here. The mixed use, as I had mentioned, residential. And so again, our parcel that we're just is a few pieces of commercial where those commercial businesses are that I had mentioned, and then a low density or an R1 single family zoning. Once you get up to the north of this area, it was mainly agricultural, and a B2 business right here where I had mentioned that quarry expansion has potential. What I wanted to point out when we look at this, so petitioners requesting the comp plan change to then request the zone change to establish mini warehouse complex, mini and maxi warehouses, so self-service warehousing. But what I want to point out, and I mentioned it just before, is that you have to look at the industrial uses in that district, what is allowed in that district, as opposed to what's allowed in the mixed use. So even though those are being requested, this is sort of you're looking at a land use designation, not a specific plan. I have all faith that Mr. Lenz is going to attempt to do his business, but you have to keep in mind that once the zoning's changed, the zoning's changed. So any of those uses are permitted. And submitted with the application. So there's a navigable waterway that runs along the north portion of the site, and you can kind of see that blocked off. Environmentally sensitive area, I believe, in between that runs down. And so these would be the mini and maxi warehouse buildings along Shampoo Road. You can kind of get the look of them here. Maxis are taller. And these are just sort of examples of what would be proposed and what would go out there. However, once again, once the zoning is changed, you get your site plan done, get your building permits, and there you go. Staff did recommend denial of the request on February 21st for multiple reasons. One, it was sort of a spot. That industrial use would be the only industrial use surrounded by commercial and residential on the south, and then commercial on the north. Maloney Road, Shampoo Road are not really designed for industrial truck traffic. Again, looking at what uses are permitted in an industrial district. Those were our two main factors. Also, the highest and best use of that site along the highway corridor might be better suited for a more active type of use. However, as the petitioner had mentioned at the last meeting, that visibility is very important for his use as well. So with that, again, staff recommended denial, commission recommended approval, council kicked it back. I do have a statement from she also could not be here because of the multiple committee scheduled at the same time. I have already committed to the Board of Appeals on behalf of a constituent, and due to schedule could not move the item forward. When I last wrote to the Plan Commission, I wrote in support of the mini warehouses. I did this as a result of information I got in support. Since that time, and especially during testimony at the City Council meeting, I heard another side of the story. It became apparent to me that this issue is much more complicated than I originally perceived it to be. Therefore, I am not making a recommendation to the Plan Commission. You as commissioners are the experts on these types of decisions. Please hear what staff has to say and what the parties involved have to say. Then make the best decision you can. I'm sorry to cause more work. At the same time, glad there's more time spent making this important decision. Thank you, Alder Barbara Dorf. So there you go. I know there are a lot of information that was added to your packet, and that is mainly communications from interested parties, adjoining property owners. And that was the only thing that was added. So, and I believe some are on tonight, and probably if you decide to open it up for public comment, would probably like to speak.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Lisa, I got some comments if I could kick us off, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So I know Chair Hansen was not here. Same thing with Commissioner Bremer, two of our usually more inquisitive of commissioners. Last time when we took this up. So I did chair that meeting and took some interest in this and did follow up and watch the comments at council, as well as kind of reviewing what we went through at the time of the meeting as well too. There was a lot of time spent here that night, as well as with council, going back and forth about this in particular. As you've seen from the comments that I hope everybody had a chance to read before the meeting, there's a lot of opposition within the neighborhood itself, obviously. So I think it's good to soak all that in, but in the interest of time, if we can try to summarize things and move it along as quickly as possible, I think that is good, because I could see this one tying us down again if we do let it go a little too far. So I wanted to clarify a couple things that and questions that I had that as I came through this. And Dave, I apologize, some of this will come across as a little critical of your report. I think it's good to point out, but nothing personal, sorry.
Right.
What potentially could be used, not just the proposal at hand. That's true, but then when we hop on, we see renderings and we get to talk to the person, the applicant on there. It definitely colors that, and I'm guilty of that as much as what in that moment too. So once you actually take a look at what's on that list of what's within that zoning, I think it does look a little different than just focusing on what's being proposed. Additionally, what I want to get some clarification on is from the facilities standpoint, specifically the sewer, and what exactly the city's responsibility is there, or not responsibility. I was under, and I think this was a wrong assumption, that the city would not have to do too much in terms of that, but I think that's a wrong assumption now after listening to the council's comments on this. So I want to get some clarification on that. Just what would the city be on the hook for in terms of what services would need to be handled? And then just kind of wrapping up, sorry for taking all much time here. I think if we did like what the proposal was at hand, I think a conditional use permit would be a better route if we do have that option than opening it up to the then change the case. I'll cede to anybody else who wants to talk now too.
Well, I can respond while it's still fresh to some of those.
Please.
So this is the comprehensive plan change. What we need to follow up would be a zone change to industrial, light industrial, and then that would also require a conditional use permit. So yes, but again, once it's zoned industrial, it's industrial. So any of the permitted uses are just permitted. The conditionals would have to go to council. As far as services or utilities or roadway improvements, we're lucky to have Director Grenier here, Public Works Director and Engineering Director. And I'm hopeful he can kind of address those concerns.
Thanks, Dave. At this time, we would expect no road improvements. There is water servicing the facility already, but there is no sanitary sewer service. The existing sanitary sewer, Green Bay Metropolitan Sewage District has a manhole up at near the intersection of Future College Park. That's where the park and ride is along Maloney. So it's approximately 800 feet of sewer that would need to be installed to get to the nearest point of access on the property. Should there be a decision to extend sanitary sewer along the entire length of Champeau Road, that would be an additional 600 feet or approximately 1,400 feet of sanitary sewer that would need to be installed. At this point in time, last summer, staff did run an update on the estimates, and we are expecting that to get sanitary sewer service to the nearest point on the property would be approximately $. To extend sanitary sewer along Champeau Road down to the west property line of the subject property, that cost goes up to about $627,000. There are additional properties that have accessible footage along the route. Typically, what would be done in a situation like this is the petitioner who is asking for the sanitary sewer extension gets billed for that cost as an extension fee. And then as properties develop between the endpoint of that sewer and the manhole connection location, we then levy assessments on those properties, and those recovered assessments are then returned back to whoever put the sewer in the first place. There would be a possibility to have the city levy those assessments up front, keep them in a deferred manner, so they would be charged against the property, but not actually levied against the adjacent property owner until such time that they are used. We have determined that approaching the project in that way could drop the price of the sanitary sewer extension by about $50,000. So the $403,000 charge to the property owner would drop to about $355,000. But those additional costs that are not accessible, those would still be charged to the person making the request as an extension fee.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Grenier. Do we have any questions for staff? All right, go ahead, Commissioner Bremer.
Floor, I'd like to hear from Alder Corpus Dax and from Commissioner Rubinsky about, first of all, particular concerns that were expressed at the Common Council. And then since Commissioner Rubinsky is our member of the Joint Planning Commission with the Town of Scott, I'd like especially to hear that. I note that the Town of Scott did deny this it denied this, and that they have most of the residential area that's closest to this area.
I think a lot of the issues were raised were a lot of the issues that were in at council, or a lot of the things that we saw in the packet coming from the community in that area. I think council felt that there was potentially better uses for this property instead of this, what's being proposed at the moment. I know there's people on council who kind of have the same opinion that I did, that we've waited 20 to 30 years with nothing being built, no one coming forward, no one wanting to pick up that tab to bring in those services. How much longer are we going to wait when we have someone here who doesn't need all of those services and has a good proposal for a business?
Yeah, and yeah, as far as the joint plan, and you'll have to excuse me, it was over a month ago here, so Dave, correct me. One of the main concerns was just the spot zoning on this, and should the development not go through, what would be allowed by changing this zoning. And it was really more the other uses that were the concern, more so than the store. That as well, the higher and better use also came up at that meeting.
Ken, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on the higher and better use. That was something I was kind of stuck on too, is if the idea is getting a higher, better use, these facility improvements would need to be done regardless in that. So I understand that we want a higher and better use, but we can't get the higher and better use without, I believe in the plan, they were looking for some sort of anchor development to kind of help pay the way of that. It doesn't seem, so that's why I'm interested in terms of the costs here. What is this actually going to cost the city to do in this regard? Because we don't think that anchor is going to happen. So was there any discussion about what that higher use could be, what the plan would be to get to that use? I mean, it's a little bit easier to envision if there's a path forward versus just, we don't want storage units, we want something better. Well, what are we doing to find that something better?
Yeah, and Dave, I apologize here. Maybe you can chime in on that one. Again, the meeting, I was the only one who was that had to meet via Zoom, so the meeting was a little difficult for some of the information that came through. But basically, it was just looking at the assessed value of storage units compared to commercial centers or a mixed use residential. But Dave, if you could fill in there.
Right. Yeah. So the discussion kind of centered around obviously that and it is not generally good planning practice to just say, well, it's not service, so fire the cannons, do whatever you need to do. Put up warehousing, quarry, because those are things that don't need sanitary service. There were several types of options. There are several types of options to getting utilities out to that area. Ken alluded to a catalyst project, which was the thought back in 2003, that there would be a large project somewhere in the vicinity that would generate enough increment that the city and Public Works Department could then utilize that increment to add utilities where they're most necessary. I don't know if this site would be one of those or not, but so that was one avenue. Another avenue is that the city council could decide to bond and just those utilities, but that's a council decision. And then also, they have to order city staff to actually do it and to do that as well. There's probably, I'm sure Steve knows, multiple other ways that utilities get placed. Those were the two main thoughts, and really it was the tax increment that was the thought process of how utilities would get down there. So that is the question. I mean, these lands have been used for agricultural type uses forever, like many farms in the city have, and farms in the extraterritorial area. I think the important thing to note here, and what we tried to stress to the Joint Plan Commission and to the Plan Commission, was that this was not a haphazard land use plan that was put out here. There was a lot of communication with property owners. There was a lot of communication between the town and the city. And that plan had a lot of thought put into it. And at the time in 2003, 2004, that was a very viable plan. You had a lot of big box going in. You know, traffic along 54, 57 is pretty busy. Not like 43, but we to get more busy. And the city did put a TIF into that area waiting for a project to create some increment. We did have to close that. It was in the red. So we were losing money every year. We closed it with the idea that we could institute another when a project presents itself. You know, utilities, road extensions, detention ponds, all those things have a very high price tag. Whether you're doing it for commercial, residential, new subdivisions, and you know, that is always the difficulty. You know, people want to develop as soon as possible. I know quite a few landowners on the east side that are ready to retire and want their farms to be 100% serviced. However, there's timing that goes along with that. And, you know, nobody can predict the market or the desirability of a site. And then there's also a lot of other factors that play into that. So the city does not own land out there. We own a little piece of land that's not accessible. But it's not like an I-43 business center where the city controlled and owned all of the land. We could set the sale prices. We could match the market. This area, it's all privately held. So those land values could potentially, the thought on the sale price could potentially drive development. I don't know, there's a lot of factors out there that make land desirable and not. But I think the important thing is that this is not one isolated piece. This is part of a whole larger development plan. And we have very preliminarily started looking at the land uses out there, only internally with the city. And keep in mind, it's a joint plan commission area, only the planning department. We have not, you know, pulled in all of the landowners, the other departments with the city, the town of Scott. So it's pretty preliminary at this point, but we are looking at changing the land uses out there to hopefully make them little bit more desirable for development. But again, we can plan, we can't make them come. So.
Dave, quick question on that. How long do you think it would take for the city to review that comprehensive plan out there and make recommendations on how to change it?
Well, it's going to be slightly dependent on the town, this timeline, and when we can get the neighbors together. But I suspect within, you know, 3-4 months, we could probably have something that's to a quality that we could bring this forward to a joint plan commission probably. So, you know, I don't know, 8 to 12 weeks, maybe a little more.
Dave, I'm looking back at my meeting notes, and I know we spent over an hour on this topic alone last time. And correct me if I'm wrong, but, and I think this was brought up earlier, we're looking for a pie in the sky type of usage, and it's been 20, 30 plus years since anything has been there. It's been almost 20 years since this plan was put together, and no one, no builder, no developer has stepped forward because of the cost or the overhead it would be for the sanitation and sewer. Am I correct?
I can't speak on why nobody has stepped forward. I think the petitioners or the property owner's agent had mentioned that at the last meeting.
Yeah, I have that in my note. Over 700,000 is what I was looking at.
And that was corrected tonight by Director Grenier, that it's really 350 to get, or 400,000 to get to the property line.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a cost. Development costs with development. We're not looking for a pie in the sky use. We're looking for an appropriate use, whether that be housing, whether that be commercial uses. That mixed use district that's in the University Heights is a very broad district. It allows a lot of different uses. However, as I had mentioned kind of in my report, when you look at the adjoining uses, you look at the adjoining infrastructure as far as roadways at this stage, and the potential for future changes to land use. Staff does not feel that an industrial land use adjacent to homes and business at that location is the best use for that site, or even an appropriate use. So again, it is kind of opportune that we are looking at the whole area. If the council were to decide this were to go industrial, it would more likely than not be more industrial in that area. I mean, we're not going to have an industrial be without additional around it, typically. But again, that's up to the council to decide, and the town of Scott in this case, what type of land uses they feel are appropriate.
Yeah,
I'm just
and I
giving
get
our
that, I guess.
professional opinion.
Yeah, no, I get that. Again, I'm just looking through my notes, and I know staff was surprised. I'm gonna use that word, surprised, when the Plan Commission approved this to move forward. And again, it's one of those conversations around, it's been 30 years, and no developer has stepped forward to give a better usage for us there. And do we stand in the way of some development? Someone wants to take use because we're looking for a better option. And I guess that is kind of the catch-22, right? We have someone, we have a developer, we have plans, and yes, we have to look at worst case scenario, but we would hope that a developer wouldn't present plans to a council, we approve it, and because there's more money out there, they just go in and sell the property, and then another more industrial company plan comes in. But that is a risk, right? In business, that is a risk you take, and I think that's the biggest risk we have right now. But again, 20 plus years, no development. I'm just kind of personally weighing the options of standing in the way of progress, because we're looking for a better use of the land when no one has stepped forward in 20 plus years to give us a better use of the land. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying. And the only thing I would add to that is, don't think like an economic development authority. You're not looking at a parcel by parcel concept. You're a planning commission. So look at what's happening to the area as these things change. Things like taxes, though you should probably be thinking about them, are not really your charge. Your charge is future land use. So when you look at industrial, you're looking at for this area should be industrial. And if that's how you feel, that's how you vote. We will adjust the plans around it so it becomes conforming. But it's more of an EDA or economic development authority type of mentality to say, we want something here now, just here. We want tax base. You're a larger thing, and us planners get it all the time because we're looking at the future. You can't predict what the future is going to hold, but you can try to shape it. So that's what you should really be looking at when you're looking at a comprehensive plan amendment. And again, the storage units, I do believe the petitioner will build them. As many as are marketly feasible. I don't know what that market holds. I don't know, the market for storage. However, that zoning is permanent. So 50 years from now, is it going to change out? 75 years from now, is that going to change out? It's not short term, it's long term. Storage units typically don't have the lifespan of a, an old downhill Hallmark type building. Those buildings have a shorter lifespan than housing. They're just built that way. So that's just what I would like you to focus on when you're thinking about it. Yeah, this site has been vacant for 20 or 30 years. And maybe that's not the appropriate land use there. That's kind of your call. But look at the entire University Heights Commerce Center when you're thinking that way, not just this site. Because there's also hundreds of acres out there that have also been sitting for 20 or 30 years waiting for future development. not just this site.
And I guess I will say this, as far as, I mean, we're just talking about, we're talking about the comprehensive plan, but I mean, once we change that, then the zoning comes next. So I personally don't feel comfortable putting light industrial right in the middle of residential like that. And I know everyone keeps on talking about this, 20 to 30 years. And I realize that this isn't, I-43 with an exit, but man, I think about 15 years ago was anything on Monroe Road. I mean, Costco is less than 10 years old for sure, that Target, everything. We don't have a lot of buildable land in Green Bay. Like in the city of Green Bay proper, like we're running out of space. And then, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable spot zoning, spot changing a comprehensive plan on this situation. But I know that 20 to 30 years, but we're running out of places to build in Green Bay. And these edges is where the new developments are going in. So I guess that is the concern that I have, that people are talking about this 20 to 30 years. Well, yeah, it's all farm. I mean, it was all farm field. It was farm field right off of GV 15 years ago. I mean, there's still a farm right on that exit. So, and again, realizing that this is 54, 57, this does not have an exit. It doesn't really have an exit. There's like a dead little round. There's no access directly to the highway from there. So, but I don't feel comfortable changing spot zoning like that because we don't know what's going to go on down the road. I mean, that's just my personal thoughts on it.
Dave, would it be appropriate to hold this application and future zoning changes until the comprehensive plan is either reviewed and updated or a new comprehensive plan is approved?
It's definitely in the Plan Commission's purview if they would want to table it. But that would be a tabling, so you would just hold it in perpetuity. That isn't your purview to do that. Again, I would recommend at that point that you ride staff hard to get that done as soon as possible. That full look at the whole University Heights. But we are actively working on it. So,
correct me if I'm wrong with this, though. To your point, Ken, the permitted use. I mean, I know we're looking at comprehensive plan, but zoning down the line, which would have to change in concert with this, we would have to. Industrial are the only ones that allow self-storage, if I'm correct, right, Dave, right?
Correct.
So we would have to go to light industrial at minimum to allow self-storage regardless. So if we're uncomfortable with industrial at that's kind of the end of it.
correct, that would be.
So I don't want to hold it for the applicant, waste their time holding it when, if we're uncomfortable with that, I don't think we're looking to change anything with that definition. At least I'm not, in terms of it. We don't want to go down that path. If we're not comfortable with that light industrial, then I don't want to waste their time holding it.
I guess I would just say to that, unless other properties around that also get changed then to light industrial, and then it wouldn't be just the spot zoning.
Right, and that staff wouldn't know, really until we reached out to all of the property owners out there. And not just on the south side of Algoma, but also the north side of Algoma and down Algoma, as well as the town of Scott. We did attempt to have a neighborhood meeting in October of last year. However, it was not well attended. I think there was only one property owner there. So that we would have to start that process over again. But I don't know if those owners down there, maybe industrials were the way they want to go.
If we were to table this, how long would it take for staff to review it? Because I'm going to assume it's going to take more than a couple weeks. And I think I could be wrong here. Need to ask the applicant, but I think anything longer than, let's say, a month is probably going to kill their deal. I'm not sure.
It would be much longer than a month. I mean, we have to go back to the joint. Well, first we got to go to the town of Scott. We have to have a neighborhood meeting and talk with the owners, do the tweaks, go back to the Joint Plan Commission. come back to the plan commission, and then the city council. Just the plan commission, our plan commission and city council process is 6 to 8 weeks. So you're adding more when you have to go to the joint plan commission and engage the neighborhood.
My recommendation would be that we make that decision tonight, let it go to council and go from there, because tabling it doesn't seem like we're just effectively killing the deal.
Tabling it does allow the kind of planning process that Dave has been talking about to go forward, though, and that does allow the current residents to have a full part in that planning process, because that's how our planning goes. I'm very concerned about the residents in the area. I'm very concerned about our relationship with the town of Scott, whom we are just kind of running roughshod over if we go ahead and go to pave over a whole bunch of partially wetlands area without any transition to the neighborhood nearby. I think we're losing a lot, not just gaining. Doesn't seem appropriate to me.
Your option would be to either table it or approve the staff's denial.
Yes, thank you. Yes, correct.
Approve denial.
That is correct.
Out of corporate staff, I mean, I know, again, we spent so much time on this in one of the last meetings. And I know there were several of us who voted in denial of the approval to deny, if I said that correct. I mean, is there anything that is there anything out of corporate staff that any additional questions that you have, or are you still, what am I trying to ask?
I see where staff's coming from, and I'm not a person to say anything's better than something, or anything's better than nothing. But I am having a hard time here. I mean, we've had, 20 some years, we have someone that wants to build here. You could say, well, the pandemic put a damper on everything. Okay, what about 20 years before the pandemic? Anything, there isn't anyone. We have someone here who doesn't need the facilities that other places might need in order to build here. It's hard for me to say no.
Commissioner Daniels, I think, I was one of the ones that, along with Alder Corpus Dax, that, wanted to move forward with this proposal, at least voted to. And, after spending some time reading through all this, I'm still a little split on it, but I think I'm leaning the opposite direction at this point. Part of my frustration is I don't like that we're relying on a plan that's 20 years old. I don't like that it took somebody bringing a development forward to now get the neighborhood engaged. This should be something that's ongoing. A lot of people just don't want it to change. They want it to stay farmland and have nothing go there. Well, if that's fine, then the plan needs to be updated to reflect that. Right now, we're kind of trying to decipher what the plan from 20 years ago was, which really isn't the current state today. And a lot of people in the neighborhood who don't want to see it change. So that's why we're getting so much, pushback. And that's fine, but we need to have something that's a little bit better to go off of in this regard. So the plan, I think, needs to be looked at regardless, but I don't think it's fair to the applicant to be holding this, and they've already had to deal with this for how long now? I forget, probably when it first hit the desk. We do need to make a decision and move forward, and I don't think we need to be holding this. I would not be in favor of that, whatever way we feel one way or another, but I think we just need to find a direction, give some clear direction to both staff, and give a good signal to the neighborhood what we feel here.
Was there any further discussion amongst the commission or any, I guess, questions for staff?
I'll go ahead and make a motion unless we did want to discuss any further. I will make a
Regardless, I
motion.
think we should be, regardless of what our motion is, this definitely needs to be reviewed by staff.
I'd love to make that condition, but I don't know if we can throw that in there for this one. But I think that message has hopefully been heard, that this is a tricky spot and it needs to be looked at, so we're not running into something similar down the line.
You know what? All right, Vice Chair Miller, I would love to let you go ahead and make a motion, but I see that someone from the public is looking to speak. So I think that we might have,
I'll withhold the motion.
It's gonna go to council anyway.
I wasn't going to make that motion, but I saw a hand up, and
as much as I do want to hear from the public on this, I'm not that interested in hearing the same things that we've heard over and over again in that.
Okay.
And as long as everyone is just going to stay cognizant, we do have other things to handle here tonight. We're already at probably 3 or 4 hours here of open comments already. So let's just try to keep it quick.
I made the motion to open the floor, so.
We can still hear you, Lisa. You're all right.
yeah, I'm sorry. Another phone call is trying to come through my iPad. Okay. Motion by Alder Corpus-Dax, second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any
Nay.
opposed?
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
All right. And
Oh.
I saw that it looked like Mr. Moore's
Hold on.
hand was up,
Hold on.
and that was the person.
I think we had 3 and 3.
Yeah, can you do a roll call vote on this one?
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sure. Chair Lisa Hanson, aye. Vice Chair
Aye.
Jacob Miller. Alder
Aye.
Corpus-Dax. Commissioner
Nay.
Bremer, Commissioner
Nay.
Daniels. Commissioner Ravinsky.
Don't you love Evan 6?
So that fails.
Fails.
Yeah, it dies.
Okay.
Okay, I will make a motion to staff's recommendation, which is denial of the comprehensive plan amendment.
And I
Second,
would second that. Okay, Ken got it.
I got a motion by Vice Chair Miller and a second by Commissioner Ravinsky. Is there any further discussion to approve the denial? And would go forward to City Council on the 19th still, even if it's
The
denied,
recommendation to deny the request.
would move
Yes.
forward.
So we would be voting in affirmative of the denial.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna do individual vote on this one. Vice Chair Miller,
Aye.
Alder Corpus-Dax,
Nay.
Commissioner Bremer,
Aye.
Commissioner Daniels,
Nay.
and Commissioner Ravinsky.
aye.
And I will also vote in favor. So we have 2 against and 4 in favor of approving the denial moving forward to Common Council for April 19th.
Correct.
All right. All right, moving on to the next item. Item number 6. Consideration with possible action on the On Broadway Inc. Business Improvement District's year-end reporting for 2021.
Did you just want me to proceed?
Do we have, I guess, see here. I'm sorry. Yeah, Mr. Johnson, if you could just go ahead and, yeah, that's, sorry, we jumped around a little bit, but yeah, we're on to item number 6 on Broadway.
Okay, so, following Jeff's, excuse me, following Jeff's example, I think, we're going to stick just to the financials. And, and our was very unique last year in that normally when we do our bid reports, we do break it out into different categories. But as you may recall, we suffered quite a bit through the pandemic and we were still in recovery mode. And so when we did our annual bid plan, when the board of directors passed the bid plan, they essentially just allocated funding into 2 buckets. One, $2,000 for our annual audit. And so for those not familiar, audits actually cost quite a bit more than that. So that is the portion that we've allocated towards just the bid. The balance is covered by On Broadway. And then the admin, excuse me, the balance was just allocated as a general allocation towards admin that the bid board gave us flexibility to use for whatever needs we had, rent, utilities, salaries, as long as they were advancing the goals that were set out within the plan. And so in 2020, we were able to obviously bring some events back. We restored our staff. Things were stabilizing a little bit back to normal, not to pre-pandemic levels, but certainly better than what they were prior. Our overall bid budget ended up reflecting about 10% of our overall budget for the organization. So meaning that On Broadway leveraged the bid investment 10 times over. That's something that we've been doing for many years now. Historically, our bid allocation is comprised about 5 to 6% of our budget. And we expect to get a little bit back to that position this year as we continue to bring back more events that were canceled throughout the pandemic. So really ours is, again, pretty simple because we didn't have multiple buckets. It was just a basic admin allocation, just, hey, on Broadway, keep your doors open. And that's what we did. So happy to take any specific questions if any of the commissioners have any. Okay, you may, I would point out, that we are still one of the lowest assessed bids in the state of Wisconsin. We are I think roughly about half of what the state average is. So, we continue to be very proud of the way that we do leverage the investment and very grateful and thankful for the property owners who invest that trust in us. And we're going to continue to do the best job that we can do with the allocation that's given to us.
And with thanks for your having clarified the one thing that I would have had questions about, that you're working with just one bucket, I'd like to move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bremer, and I didn't catch who had that second. Oh, Commissioner Evans. All right, any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and thank you so much, Mr. Johnson, for all that information.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
I feel like every time I see businesses on Broadway that there's some turnover, but man, those spaces fill up quick. So
They do.
it's very exciting down there. I love living down in this area. So
Yeah, sad to see businesses leave, Brian, but I know you're working on, I know the wedding dress place left recently, so.
Yeah, a certain amount of turnover is actually healthy for a district, right? It's just making sure that you get the best possible uses out of those spaces. So,
yeah, but I know we have a vintage place coming. I'm super excited about that.
Mhm. So,
And
Awesome.
thank you for waiting.
yes,
bet.
thank you. All right, and then moving on to item number 7, which is consideration with possible action on the Military Avenue Business Improvement District's year-end reporting for 2021. And go ahead, Leah.
Okay, thank you. Hi. I also have the financial report only, which was, I believe, our task. So we actually present to you guys twice. The one is financial, and then the other one is more about goals and things like that. So we were slightly over budget on income, which is always good. I attribute that to who are farmers, but then also an out payment. So basically we swipe people's cards, but then we pay it back to the farmer. So that's why we were over income. Otherwise we probably would have been pretty darn close. And we underspent by about 33,000 this year. I have been trying to get a strategic plan going for a long time and really trying to find someone that fit what we were looking for. And we did use O'Connor Connective, sorry, I said that wrong. And so part of the funds that we spent on that are in this, or were in the 2021 budget, and then another part of the funds are going to come out of this year. I think it was very successful though, and we came up with a really great 3-year plan, and now we're really breaking those things down. And hopefully we'll be able to spend down some of our reserves. We ended up with more reserves also. So we don't do a full-blown audit. We are able to do a review, which is still about $2,000. But I call it an audit review. And based on that, we did carry over about 93,000. Again, I'm pretty thrifty, and that's okay. We get paid once a year, so it's kind of nice to have money in the bank when we need it. So hopefully we'll see our 3-year spending and our plan fold out now this year. I don't know if anyone had anything.
I just had one question, and I'm really excited about the farmers market and the way it's been going. I normally stop. It seems to be something different, a different food truck that I haven't seen or something of that nature. Are there any plans on, I'd love to know your thoughts on trying to get some of the vendors for the Saturday farmers market to come over to military so they can expand it and make it even bigger? Has that been a concerted effort been looked into to do that, or is it 2 different types of vendors for those markets?
A lot of our vendors are duplicates. Truthfully, I max out on our space, so we're kind of limited to how much we can put in there. Right now, I have more than I can fit in that space. As we transition, Sears becomes a real business again. I shouldn't say Sears. The former Sears building becomes a property again. I'm asking those developers to look at building in a place for the market to have a home. And, you know, if we could increase the size, I definitely can increase the vendors. We have a lot of vendors coming back. I always worry about losing produce people because it's hard work. And a lot of the Hmong farmers are so awesome at what they do, but their kids growing up here are not necessarily interested in continuing that really hard work. So I've been participating with a group that's really focusing on keeping the Hmong vendors. And I have one family that comes up from Appleton every year, and they love our market. They do as well at our Thursday market as they do on the Saturday in Appleton. And they said, you know, you guys are our friends, that they call us their friends. So we love that. I also have a new guy coming in that him and his wife broke off from his parents' farm. So that's exciting. So some people are staying in farming, and I think that's to our advantage to get that fresh Wisconsin food.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know there's a lot of food insecurity in this area, so those markets definitely help. And again, just from my knowledge, you're not able to expand into the Sears parking lot any further than what you have been in the past. Is that?
You know, every year, so for the last 2 years, I've thought about that, but they have told me that they're tearing Sears down. So when they do that, with the demo, I don't know where the fence is going to go. So we'll have to move, and I don't want to promise people a spot that then I can't give them a spot. So we can't park by the Green Bay Plaza. A lot of those big those big name stores have contracts with them that don't allow things to happen in the parking lot, which is kind of interesting. I guess you guys see it as a big empty lot. I see it as I can't go there and I can't go there.
Yeah.
But it's not to say, you know, perhaps Shopko is not going to really generate, the former Shopko won't generate as much space parking requirements as they used to. And we could have a conversation with Martin's if we want to grow.
Jessica is here.
Woo!
Hey,
All right.
Jessica, way to go, gal. She got us back right away.
All right. And now I don't even remember who made the
Oh.
motion.
We've got,
Commissioner Ravinsky with second by Alder Corpus Dax. We'll take a voice vote. All those in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that'll move forward to City Council for April 19th. Thank you so much, Leah.
Thanks.
And on to item number 8, which is a public hearing on request to amend zoning ordinance number 9-15, a planned unit development to permit a drive-through restaurant at 1567 East Mason, submitted by Stephen Weslowski, Midwest Expansion LLP, on behalf of Grand Central LLC property owner. And with this public hearing, again, we're looking, I guess we'll hear a brief overview first from staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request for a PUD amendment, a planned unit development amendment at 1567 East Mason Street, and that property is highlighted in red here. It's just east of the East River and just before Bellevue Street. It's adjacent to, it's kind of the sister site to the Grand Central Station here. As part of a comprehensive plan amendment back in 2015, one of the conditions was that PUD, if a development was to come forward, the PUD be expanded. And this is the first request we've had to do that. So we need to expand the PUD here with some stipulations in the PUD to accommodate for a Starbucks restaurant, basically a drive-through restaurant on this site.
All right, thank you. And we're looking with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from parties who are in favor of the development. I guess we're looking to hear from people who are in opposition to this item.
Hello, is my voice heard?
Yes, if you could please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is George Fry. I live at 1550 Kimball Street, maybe half a block away from the property. Okay, to continue?
Yeah, oh yes, go ahead.
I'd like to speak out in opposition of this site. Mr. Buck was kind enough to send me the plans, so I was able to look it over a little bit. Grand Central Station has not been a very good neighbor to this residential area. That lot that's being discussed did have a lot of houses on it that were torn down when Grand Central Station was built, which opened it up to easy view from my backyard, which is now pretty much filled with noise pollution from the car wash and light pollution from all the lighting that's around the gas station. And it has increased foot traffic in my alley 100-fold. It used to have very little traffic at all, and now people are walking to the gas station pretty much 24 hours a day and buying food and beverages, which they then eat on the way home back through the alley, and they discard all the containers in the alley. My alley's kind of a big garbage can now, and I have to pick up garbage every day. I picked up some cans and some to-go cups today and some wrappers from the Hardee's at Grand Central Station. And yesterday when the weather was so nice, I took a nice walk down Kimball Street, and the whole fence line behind Grand Central is massively packed with garbage that no one ever picks up. And I'm worried that if a restaurant comes in here, that's just going to increase even more. And looking at the plans that were sent to me, one of the driveways from the Starbucks that's being put there is almost even with the alleyway behind my house, which makes me think that cars are going to start driving through there. They'll see Starbucks and want to turn around and come back and get some coffee. And I really I'm losing all my privacy in my backyard. And I'm really concerned that this is going to be another bad neighbor for my property.
All right, thank you so much for your comments, Mr. Fry.
I appreciate it. I'll mute my microphone.
Was there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this item? Is there anyone wishing to provide information only? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 9. Consideration with possible action on a request to amend zoning ordinance number 9-15, a planned unit development to permit a drive-through restaurant at 1567 East Mason Street, submitted by Stephen Weslowski, Midwest Expansion LLP, on behalf of Grandson LLC property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, here is the aerial photo of the site. The property is highlighted in red. Around the property are mainly 1- and 2-family dwellings to the north, west, and south, and of course, Grand Central to the east. Dating back to 2015, there were 2 comprehensive plan amendment changes that were done. The first one was for Grand Central and the gas station. The second one kind of rounded out the block. So this entire block, from a comprehensive plan perspective, from a land use perspective, is intended for commercial. So this proposed use is certainly in keeping with the comp plan's recommendation. From the zoning, you see the PUD for the Grand Central. It has some underlying zoning of residential. The surrounding properties here are mainly low density residential as well. Attached within your packet is the draft PUD language. This is an exhibit from that. It's the site plan. Grand Central is located to the east here. The white area is the location of the Starbucks proposed restaurant, 2,500 square feet, dual travel lanes here for drive-through. There will be a continuation of the buffer along Kimball and along John Street to match that which Grand Central has. From a traffic perspective, access will be shared from the existing driveway here that enters Grand Central, and there will be one driveway cut here onto John Street. The applicant has been working with our traffic engineer and has submitted a traffic impact analysis, but that hasn't been finally approved yet, and that will be one of our conditions tonight for approval. This is some elevations of the proposed Starbucks restaurant, again, as an exhibit, the general architectural standards that will be presented. With that, we did notify affected property owners. We're going to receive a few calls and questions regarding this.
Made it to the last item.
So we are recommending item. We have 3 conditions. The first one is kind of our standard condition for site plan submittal to our department for review. Item B is the approval of the traffic impact analysis, the TIA, approved by our traffic engineer, and approval of the draft PUD ordinance that's attached within your packet.
Okay, thank you so much, Paul. Go ahead, Commissioner Bremer.
What I'm wanting to ask is whether or not there is any other way of reconfiguring this drive-through. Because what we've got is we're putting a line of traffic right along Kimball and down, is it John Street that runs across Mason there? I remember when we initially planned on the Baskin-Robbins Hardee's Grand Central section, that the neighbors were very concerned, and I think this is kind of a death blow to that neighborhood because there's very little protection for them from that constant stream of traffic. Can it just be reversed so that it's on the inside between Grand Central and the Starbucks place, which would leave a potential front door in what I think your staff report referred to it as a neighborhood commercial node, but it's totally unfriendly to the neighborhood. It does not invite the neighborhood in. There's just this line of traffic going around. And a front door would certainly be more inviting to the neighbors.
Well, I can respond to that. Certainly, we're not involved in the design here. I think this is a design that's provided by the applicant, probably based on a model that Starbucks has requested. So it's, for lack of a better term, probably a cookie cutter layout that fits on the site. I think there is some ability for some transition here, much like with Grand Central, to mitigate some of that. But this is a drive-through operation, and that's what the applicant has requested.
I guess I'm having a hard time with this because it really is just right in the middle of that residential section. And I feel like when that original development went through and started being built, I feel like the neighbors had a lot of problems during phase.
Yes.
Or even afterwards too. Like there was a lot of issues as that was going in. And I guess one of the concerns I have for Mr. Fry, who had talked would come out and tell Grand Central that you need to be cleaning up.
If we found the source, yes. Maybe it's a giveaway when they have Grand Central on it or Starbucks, but sure.
Right. So that is complaint driven. So if there are issues, they should contact city inspectors or the city directly. Okay.
Chair Hansen, I do have 2 quick questions, and maybe I missed this. I can't read my notes from earlier, but what is the amount, Paul, of stackable cars for the double drive-through? Do we have that information?
They have more than enough stacking to meet our code requirements here, sure.
Okay. And the second one, I wrote down something, but I can't read my notes. Where are the speakers, the drive-through speakers located? The ordering speakers, is it on the?
It would be, I think, the northwest of the property, or near the intersection of John and Kimball.
Can you bring that back up and show me?
Sure.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out where that was, and I can't read my earlier notes.
Yeah, I believe it's right in this area here. If you can see my cursor, I'm sorry.
I can. All right, thank you.
Sure.
That's 11 cars pictured, by the way, I just counted. So if you want to do the double lane, 22-ish.
I don't know, for Starbucks, that might not be enough.
I don't know, if you think about the military Starbucks, I think we're good.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine Dave Hansen signing off on this, the traffic engineer. That is, I can't imagine it. I sincerely can't. I trust the judgment, but I can't see it.
Well, so the applicant has worked directly with Dave on this. Unfortunately, I don't have an opinion from him. I've asked for one, but I'm still waiting for one. But there was a professional TIA completed and submitted to Dave. It was Dave's suggestion about John Street to add that driveway. So he's had some eyes on this. I just don't have an official opinion from him. So that's why this is running with a condition of that approval.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this, knowing what that intersection of Mason and what's that one that's just east of John?
Bellevue.
Bellevue? Or no, that's west of John. Or wait, no, what's the one that's one west of John?
John,
Bellevue.
it's John and Bellevue.
Yep.
The corner.
Bellevue, East Mason.
Hartung.
Oh,
I've been at that intersection multiple times. I mean, it gets backed up pretty far. When you're at the intersection of Mason and Bellevue, you know, sometimes you're backed up to John Street. It's Hartung and Mason Street are, I've seen that be just a very dangerous intersection where I know we had a light there a pedestrian crossing light there that we no longer operate because motorists weren't paying attention to that light. I mean, that's right over the little East River Bridge on Mason Street. So I don't want to hamper business here, but I'm struggling with this one because it just, the amount of traffic that Starbucks are known to produce, it's especially during peak times. Mason and Bellevue is an extremely busy intersection. I don't know. I don't see how this is
Possible.
safe. Possible, yeah.
Well,
I guess, yeah, and I just don't.
I'm sorry, we could request Dave Hansen to appear. I could get something in writing from him. Again, I apologize, I don't have anything to present at this point from him.
Yeah, I think that's kind of necessary. Like we need to hear his opinion on this because it's kind of surprising that we're going to put a business that big that generates that much traffic. Right.
I'd like to hear his thoughts just in general on that corridor between there, because I mean, I don't know what the future looks like for this neighborhood, but I mean, this kind of puts it on a particular path. And gosh, that's just such a tight corridor. There's such little between Bellevue and your next light is Bayard, I think, once you cross the river. People fly through there. And it's, you're gonna have people trying to take lefts out of John onto me. It's just ick.
So do we hold this until the next meeting when hopefully Dave can be here?
That would be an appropriate motion. You want to make that motion?
I will. It'll be my final motion.
And I'll give you a final second and you come back soon.
Yeah, I'll motion to hold this until the April 11th meeting.
Could it just be the next available meeting or the
Next available meeting?
next potential, just so we have some flexibility in case we can't meet the 11th?
Yep.
Whenever
Second
Dave's
that.
available, that is.
All right, so we have a motion to hold.
Yes.
Sid did second underneath when I was talking over. Sorry.
Oh, any further discussion? The motion is to hold until the next available meeting to hear from our traffic engineer. All those, I'm sorry, go ahead. You're good? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm just wondering how the neighbors will find out about this.
We send out notices again to the same property owners within 200.
Thank you, Paul.
Is
Thank
there
you. I
is there a
appreciate it.
neighborhood association for right in here?
I don't believe so.
Or maybe just get it to, is it Alder Gavin for this one?
He was copied on the property owner notice, yes.
Okay.
And
It'd be
I would-
Ames as well at that time, if possible.
And I'd ask a notice to go to Mr. Fry as well.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to add, Mr. Fry, I'll make those complaints for you to have our inspectors come out for litter on the site,
Excellent.
that corner.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cheryl. All right, then moving on, informational.
Sorry, quickly, what is this? Is this the neighborhood called something?
Is it Three Corners or is it Starlight or?
I've seen Starlight, but I didn't want to assume. I think that's
Starlight's a little bit further
Yeah,
down.
farther
Mine
down, yeah.
is.
It might be Oak Grove, I think.
Okay.
Oh, no, yeah, it's definitely
Mr.
Oak
Fry
Grove.
is nodding.
Oh,
Okay.
yep.
Oak Grove, we hit it.
Thank you.
Okay, are we good? All right. Moving on to director's report. Is Neil not with us today? Is Cheryl or Neil?
You know what? Neil is actually out today. His father, he needed help his father with some things actually. So he's not in. I do not have a director's report, unfortunately. I can tell you at the last council meeting, other than this first item for Shampoo Road being sent back, everything else was approved. So.
Perfect. Great
Things
report,
in Green Bay.
girl. All right, and then the date of the next meeting is April 11th.
And I need to let you all know that I will not be available on that date. I'm going to be in Hawaii, so there.
Oh, don't rub it in.
Joy.
Here, because I'll be hiding in Sid's suitcase.
You know, it said Zoom works in Hawaii.
Oh, where I'm going to be, it won't work, I'm sure.
Just teasing.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Bremer. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.